Okay, please mute your mics. I'd like to bring this meeting to order. Any declarations of interest? Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I have for the fee for service agreement with the TCAG. I'm on the board there.
Okay, that's duly noted by the clerk. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Adoption of the agenda, moved by Councillor Decker, seconded by Councillor Neal, that council adopt the agenda for the meeting of February 3rd, 2021. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Discussion reports. We're here tonight for DF 2021-02, and we'll be discussing the 2021 budget. And I'm going to open this up with our Chief Administrative Officer's opening comments. Manoj, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll provide a brief overview of the 2021 budget. And following my comments, Maria Moro, our Director of Finance, will highlight areas of impact in her budget presentation. So about 2 weeks back, Council was provided with budget binder. I hope you all had a chance to review it in sufficient detail. Tonight, staff are going to present draft operating and draft capital budgets for discussion and your approval. As done in the past and continued this year, the water and urban services areas budgets will be separate, but these are separate budgets and will be presented to council in the next few months. Due to COVID, same as last year, there will be reduced revenues. At this point, the full impact of COVID is unknown and will depend upon provincial orders, which may impact this budget. Should there be impacts which have not been identified in this budget, staff will report back to council outlining the impacts. Like previous years, staff has extensively worked to bring this budget for your consideration. Given the current environment, and as there was no budget guidance target to staff from council, staff has provided a net zero change from the last year to the tax levy. However, as you can see in your budget binder, there are a number of items that are on the deferred list, some of which need consideration by council. These items are mainly pertaining to infrastructure projects. Should council decide to bring any of these items forward from the deferred list, please do so for discussion and inclusion in the main budget. I would like to bring to your attention that staff are working on updating the asset management plan that would guide council and staff in identifying the shortfalls and assist in development of strategies to mitigate the funding gaps. I would like to mention that taxes in Thorold are on the lower end compared to other municipalities in Niagara. As you are aware, the city's portion of the budget only represents 39% of the tax bill for the average residential home. Other portions such as urban service area levy, hospital levy, regional levy, and the educational levy constitute the other 61% of the tax bill. I would reiterate that staff has worked diligently over the past several months to balance the need of the community while making sure the taxes are kept low. At this point, I will pass it on to our Director of Finance, Maria Moro, who will do the budget presentation. Thank you very much.
And now I'd like to welcome Maria Moro, our Director of Finance, and she's the star of the evening, and I'll turn it over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to need Matt's help. He's going to be running the slide deck for us, as my laptop tends to lose connection partway through. So we'll just wait for Matt to do the share screen and we can start the presentation.
You're up.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, everyone, welcome to Budget 2021. Next slide, please, Matt. I think we've gone a little bit too far. Is that the next one? No, okay, well, oh my goodness. We've lost a few slides along the way here. Let me see if I can do. I'm going to see if I can run it because I think there's some slides missing here.
Okay, no problem. It does say 2 on the bottom, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Matt, what's happened here.
Maria, I have a PDF copy here if you want me to
Do you
share.
have the PDF? Yeah, okay.
I have the PDF. You want me to share it?
Sure, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
So I'm just make it bigger anyway. Yeah. All right. Okay. So just go to the next one.
Okay, yeah, the next one, please. The city has 4 budgets, the general operating budget and the capital budget, which form part of this package. You'll note that the capital budget, we have new money of $8 million and about $16 million in carry forward of projects. The water and sewer budgets will be addressed later in this quarter. Next slide, please. For funding, there is an interrelationship between all the various sources in that a reduction in one area must be funded from the other areas. And normally it goes on to the property taxes. This shows the funding options for both capital and operational expenses. Some of the items, for example, grants, investment income, are beyond our control. So we need to consider the other areas which we can control so that the burden is not totally loaded onto property taxes. While reserve funding for ongoing operating expenses does occur, it is a very short-sighted move, and it really shouldn't from a best practice perspective, as it is not sustainable. Next slide, please. The city issues tax bills, which encompass not only city taxes, but the regional and education taxes as well. City general budget taxes represent about 39% of the total bills across all property classes, with the bulk of the taxes being the region and education. Next slide, please. Now, this may be a little small to see, but this chart depicts a comparison of the relative taxes across the region by home type. You will note that Thorold is the bottom red line in all cases. Thorold's taxes for detached bungalow are the lowest in the region, with the 2-story and senior executive home taxes in the lower end of the ranges. To provide some reference, a 1% net levy change equates to about $163,000, and a 1% levy change equates to about $15 to the average residential home, valued at $258,800. Next slide, please. The wild card for this year is COVID-19 impact on operations. The budget assumed impacts to transit for 3 months, to the arena for 2 months, impacts to investment income for the whole year, along with safe restart grants from the province. The draft budget levy is impacted by about $109,000 net, with reserves impacted by an additional $107,000 due to COVID. This remains a risk area to the budget, as the impacts will be dependent upon the duration of the lockdowns and or red zone status. We know already that the impact to the arena will extend into the 3rd month of the season, and an adjustment to budget will be required. If impacts continue, we would hope that additional grants would become available. Alternatively, we would look at mitigation strategies as we did in 2020, and or rely on our contingency reserves to fund any deficits. Next slide, please. The draft operating budget as presented reflects a 3.2% gross departmental increase with 1.6% infrastructure levy increase. Growth is estimated at 4.8% for a total net levy increase of 0%. Next slide, please. The gross operating budget amounts to $24.4 million, with transportation, which includes transit and winter control, along with fire expenses amounting to 45% of the total gross expenditures. Next slide, please. The package provides information on the specific impacts by department, but I'd like to provide you with a global summary of some of the major impacts. Salary, benefits, and honoraria costs for the proposed budget represent roughly 50% of the expenditures in the draft operating budget at approximately $10.9 million. Increases to wages and benefits for existing staffing and council to cover contractual increases, step increases, OMERS statutory and health benefits are forecast to increase by $203,000. We see annualization costs for positions approved last year, which commenced partway through the year, along with some new positions proposed for 2021. A number of positions are funded from non-levy sources, such as building permits. This brings the levy impact to $306,000. This chart demonstrates how we are progressing in the ability to sustain our non-water and sewer assets. Please note that these are annual estimated totals. The green bar is the current budget provision. The yellow bar is the amortization expense based on historical costs. And the red bar is where we need to be on an annual basis to maintain our assets based on their replacement costs. We need an additional $2.9 million per year to fully fund our assets. You can see that we are not funding sufficiently in any category. On a positive note, however, tremendous progress has been made over the past few years, which has resulted in us at least covering the amortization expense and beginning to contribute towards replacement costs. Sustaining our assets is an area that we must continue to address, not just from a best practice goal, but from a provincially mandated obligation. Next slide, please. There are a number of legislated obligations from the province with respect to assets, which will impact us over the next few years. The first one was due July 1st, 2019, which was a strategic asset management plan policy, and that was finalized. By July 1st, 2021 of this year, we have to have an updated asset management plan for our core assets, the hard service infrastructure. This is underway and the target will be met. And lastly, by July 2023, an asset management plan encompassing all of our assets will be required. This is in the budget to start in 2021. Our projected phase-in increase for asset renewal was estimated at $770,000. To mitigate the levy impact, only $258,000 was included. This hampers our ability to renew our assets and is especially problematic when the need for big ticket projects comes forward. Next slide, please. We provide a grant to the library for which they've requested an increase of $11,000 or 1.6%. In addition, the budget includes provisions for increases to the community improvement plan grants, specifically the tax increment grant. We expect an increase of about $77,000 for total rebates of $288,000. In order to balance the budget, we have utilized reserves to fund this increase. Staff want to point out again that this is not a best practice and it will impact on the 2022 budget as an ongoing expense. The recently renewed insurance package and deductible provision will require an increase to the general operating levy of about $96,000. For transit costs, the budget assumes a revenue loss of $75,000 for 3 months, which will be offset by the provincial Safe Restart Transit Grant. The Brock contribution made over the past few years will be lost, and St. Catharines Transit will increase operational costs. Overall, a net impact to the budget of $86,500. The city had internally financed the streetlight LED project, and this repayment was completed last year. The budget is reduced by $143,700. We see reductions in the OMPF grant, in parking enforcement revenues, in investment income, and in residential licensing. We do anticipate that our supplemental tax revenues will increase by $350,000. The net budget impact here is $69,000. The draft budget had assumed closure of the arena due to COVID of 2 months. Since that time, we know that the order will likely be extended, and council approved last night the removal of the ice. Accordingly, we must adjust the budget for the additional month's loss of revenue and expense reduction. And in order to maintain the budget change level, we recommend funding the impact from the contingency reserve. So overall, we still stay at zero. Levy impact here is $104,000. The province has provided us with the Safe Restart grants to assist us in dealing with the COVID impacts. This provides assistance to our budget of $304,000. It should be noted that this may impact upon our 2022 budget should the COVID impacts not turn around and should further grants not be available. In summary, the net levy shows a 0% net change. The impact to the average overall tax bill across all property classes is a 0.03% reduction. For the residential class, the average home will see a $1 decrease from the city's general budget. This represents a 0.1% decrease to their overall tax bill. We estimate that the impact to the overall residential average tax bill, including the city, region, education, hospital, and urban service area, will be $22 or 0.6%. Commercial and industrial classes will further benefit by reductions in the education rates. Next slide, please. The report includes listings which total $16.7 million in reductions and deferrals that have been used to reduce the levy impact, with the largest items being infrastructure renewal. The presence of any item on the list does not mean that staff are supportive of the reductions or that the items are not needed, merely that the overriding factor was levy impact. Council can review the deferral list as part of your deliberations. Next slide, please. Our total capital budget for new capital works is $8 million, with 41% related to core infrastructure. There are carry forward projects valued at $16 million for a total capital project slate of $24 million. Over the next 10 years, we estimate capital projects of $164 million. The report identifies that the total capital funding gap that the city faces over the next 10 years to be about $70 million. This will require the need to issue debt, incur debt servicing costs in our annual budgets, less any grants or fundraising that we are able to garner. We need to remain cognizant of this today as projects are approved, as this may impact our ability to proceed in the future. We need to ensure, of note, as we make decisions, we need to make sure we take a long-term view. Of note, there are a few big ticket items in the forecast. There's roads, fire stations, combined sewer separations, and the operations center. Next slide, please. The city is presently very well positioned from a debt standpoint, with only $830,000 outstanding projected at the end of 2020, relating entirely to City Hall. This will be fully paid off in 2026. In addition, we have financed a number of capital projects internally with payback over a number of years. The city in 2011 committed $5.7 million towards the new hospital. We levy $298,000 per year as a separate levy on the tax bill, and this will be there until 2026. This chart depicts our reserve position, excluding hydro. While we have estimated combined available balance of $33 million, in reality, the bulk of the holdings are in development charges, restricted or legislated reserve funds. Available balances for operating and capital are estimated at $7.4 million. Next slide, please. I'm not sure what we have here. Okay. Of that $7.4 million, it should be noted that there are allocations to specific asset types that do exist for the bulk of this reserve balance. Next slide, please. For the hydro, the projected interest is $375,000, with the utilization proposed for 2021 directed to debt servicing City Hall, capital asset transportation provision, and the capital asset general provision. The levy support is 2.2%. For risks and opportunities, we do have a number of risks in 2021. Revenue and expense projections due to COVID, new grant programs requiring municipal contributions, and any in-year overruns or emergencies. Staff would respectfully suggest that it should be the budget that establishes the service levels, and that in-year overruns or adjustments should be limited to emergencies or grant-related items. Next slide, please. This is a suggested process that has worked well in the past. Any changes to the draft budget are voted on by council as you go through the 3 sections. These items can be reconsidered at the end of the budget process, immediately prior to final adoption of the budget. This ensures that we differentiate between general discussion and changes, which are formalized and recorded in the minutes. Of course, council can change the process as you like. However you'd like to go through the budget, staff is fine with. That concludes the presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Maria. And I'm going to open the floor for questions before we start going through things. So is there any questions before we start? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the Director of Finance. Maria, you mentioned that there's an investment income risk. Can you explain that?
Sure. Due to COVID, the bottom has fallen out of the interest rate market. For 2020, we were at 2.2% average interest. Now it's gone to 0.7%. We don't expect that. I don't expect that interest rate is going to recover for 2021. So we do have that impact.
So our return on our I guess that must be our hydro money. That's not locked in over time. It's an annualized return.
There's a portion that is locked in. I think we're probably about $10 million that's locked in. And there's the $7 million that is not locked in at this point. It's not just the hydro money, but also our general reserves that we do have cash balances. The reserve funds, traditionally, whatever interest you earn, reserve funds and development charges, whatever interest you earn gets sent back to the reserve fund or the development charge. If it's a reserve, that stays in the general operating budget.
Thank you. And another question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Finance. You mentioned the provincial legislation for asset management, and you mentioned how we're not on track. What are the future issues that we can expect if we don't get back on track?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're on track in terms of meeting the legislation, because the legislation says you have to have asset management plans in place by certain points. I think what we're seeing now is our budget should be $2.9 million higher than it is right now in order to adequately fund your assets. Because we're always sort of focusing on that bottom line. We've done a pretty good job with the hard services, with water, sewer, and roads. We've done a pretty decent job at kind of maintaining, the renewal. For all the other assets, we just don't, because it would be too much of an impact to the budget. Like, for it to be funded properly this year, we should have put $770,000 in there instead of $258,000. Your long-term impact is you're going to hit a wall at some point. The money won't be there. You're going to have to debt service it. And with debt servicing comes financing costs to the budget.
So there's no legislative risks. There's no penalties or lack of grants given to the city for any reason.
Yes and no. When we do have an asset management plan for our infrastructure, and it did have recommendations in place. The recommendations, council has done a very good job at following those recommendations. I would say that if you have an asset management plan and you ignore everything, at some point, the province or the feds may say, look, you're not following your asset management plan, because that is always a component when you do a grant application. How does this fit into your asset management plan? So there is that possibility that they might say, well, you have a plan, you're not following it, you don't qualify for the grant.
Right. And one more question here through you, Mr. Merritt, the Director of Finance. You mentioned we had 7.4 million in reserves that are usable, I guess, that aren't earmarked. What's your opinion on that reserve level for a city our size?
We are too low. We are too low. We have decent reserve levels in some of the areas, but certainly from a usable reserve perspective and from a capital renewal perspective, they're too low.
What would your opinion be on a reasonable number?
Well, we did develop a reserve policy, and we do have target levels for each of the reserves. I don't have them. I don't know if you want me to email you. I can kind of list them off if you want. But certainly the big ones is the capital asset and the capital asset transportation. So normally what we try to do is we try to look at what's 1 year's renewal. Where should we be? So for example, I think we've got. Let me just give you an example here. Okay, so capital asset transportation, we should be at $3.4 million. And I think we're targeting in that $1 million range, million to 2 million.
Okay, so I guess
1.9 million.
okay. So we're not mildly low. We're, I guess, moderately low.
Well, we are moderately low in our usable reserves.
Okay.
The reserves, like in some cases, maybe we've got reserves that have a little bit too much in them. Not millions of dollars too much, but certainly, if you look at some of the deferral projects, the funds really aren't there to do it. And even if you look at the $7.4 million, over $1 million is for fleet and general equipment replacement. So, I suppose council could say, well, we want you to, you said 7.4, we're going to consolidate that. Doesn't matter what they were set up for. We want to do whatever. And then at that point, for future years, now when you want to buy a truck or a snowplow or a fire truck, the reserve isn't there to support it. So again, you're into debt financing.
Right, okay. And Mr. Mayor, I said that was my last question, but I do have one more if I could, please. You mentioned that, I guess we're keeping the impact to the levy at 0 because we're using 4.8% in growth to offset expenses. What's your opinion on that? What's your opinion on using our growth dollars to fund our existing operational costs, et cetera?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, like it is a common practice in municipalities that when you look at net levy, you do consider the growth as part of it, as opposed to just considering your gross levy, because in reality, what happens is you have a bigger assessment base to charge your services to. You may or may not be servicing the growth at the same level in all cases, but again, that's a council decision in terms of, what service level do you want to provide across the board? Because there are some areas that, maybe don't have the transit, and are kind of supporting the other areas that do have the transit. So again, like your budget sets your service level, but it'll be council that kind of says, we think the service level needs to be adjusted or tweaked in certain respects.
Okay, I appreciate your answers. Thanks very much.
Okay. So anyone else before we move forward? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to our CEO, thank you for the presentation. It was very, very well done and easy to follow. I just want to ask, I'm a little concerned about reserves. So I'm sure we're going to get some requests tonight. Are you comfortable dipping into reserves, being that we're short reserves as an option?
Well, again, through you, Mr. Mayor, that really is up to council to decide. It comes down to, as you're making decisions to dip into reserves, you may be providing a buffer to your 2021 budget, to your current year budget. But if that reserve is not there next year and the year after, then it just kicks that problem down the road. So you're either going to take no impact this year and then take an impact, a year or two down the road, or you're going to say, well, maybe we'll do a little bit of both and put some to the levy so that we have something in our base budget, as opposed to, stripping the reserves down. And, other municipalities have done it. It's not uncommon, but what ends up happening is at some point the reserves are gone, and then you're totally hitting the levy every time.
Councillor Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maria, now that we're on, you had mentioned it, I think it was around, I tried to write it down, slide 12, about big ticket projects that come forward and that we should be cognizant of the fact that they're underfunded and how it may affect future budgets.
Sure. Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if it's something that is relatively, it's not a big ticket item, then, perhaps you can go into the reserves and, hope that you can cover it. But, the problem that we're facing is some of these projects now that are coming up are, 5, 10, $7, $8, $9 million, just for, not necessarily for, for things like buildings and things like that, but, just to renew some of your hard service assets. There's some big ticket projects that are, if you look at the 10-year forecast that are coming down the pipe. And at some point, there will be an impact because we have gone years and years and years without adequately providing, the replacement renewals.
I think that was, okay, thank you very much. And if I can, I think that was back when, years ago, I remember probably a decade ago, at the time you were asking for $220,000 a year, would have funded it. And I think now we're beyond that. So we're trying to do our best, I guess you can say, but we've lagged behind for a decade that I can remember. Thank you very much for your answer.
Okay. I can just say, just in a brief overview, with the research I've done and at the region, the region was at 2.9 and used reserves to get down to 1.8. That's how they got to 1.8, just so you're aware. The average of the municipalities that are finished their budgets in Niagara is the lowest tax increase is 1.86 and the highest is 2.44 so far. Not that we have to even look at that, but I'm just giving you the guidance as what's gone on across the region, and most are using a combination of levy and reserves this year, taking into consideration that you're dealing in a sensitive environment with the COVID pandemic. Okay, so Mike, go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but my thought was this: if we accept the base budget, the main budget as it is, as a group, and then we can go to the lengthy deferred list, was my thought. I don't know if I make a motion for that or what.
To make that motion, and then it's up to council. That was going to be the recommendation that I made, that we move from the base budget and go through and move on to the deferral list, but that's got to be at the will of council. So do you want to make
Yeah,
that?
so can I make that motion that we accept the main budget as it is and move on
And go to the deferral list?
and go to the deferral list? Thank you.
Do you have a seconder? I can't see with this screen right now.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
Councillor Kenny raised his hand. I saw that.
Sorry,
Just so I can see, and then
I'm trying.
no problem.
I can't get, can I just maybe just go through the slide and then I'll shut it down. I don't know. Oh, I see it. Never mind.
Okay, and so we have a mover and a seconder, and I'll open the floor. Does everybody agree with that, or someone want to talk on that? The floor is open. Seeing no, go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, does that mean that we're accepting everything that's here without questioning things, or?
Well, we're accepting the operating and capital budgets as is, and then we're moving to the deferral list. That's exactly what that means. Yes.
Are we able to come back, Mr. Mayor, on anything, or?
Well, we can come
Because
back.
there's some things that concern me in there, and I want to be able to bring them up after.
We can come back right to our Director of Finance like we always do at the end when we bring it all together. One final crack, am I correct, to the Director of Finance as we've done in the past?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. Normally we put it up on the spreadsheet,
We'll come back to it one
and then at the end you can come back.
and whittle and do whatever we have to do, Councillor DeRose.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we can come back to stuff in here. Thank you.
Yeah, you can, absolutely. We're
Thank
not
you.
trying to rush the process. We're just trying to see if that's palatable with council. Okay? Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so and I'm going to turn that over. You wanted to go through that slide before we go to the deferral list, am I correct?
There were a few changes, post-budget changes. I just wanted to, this is going to be quite small, but I just wanted to kind of highlight to council that there were a number of changes after the preparation of the budget. The one you dealt with last night, which was the arena revenue loss for an additional month, along with utility savings for the additional month. The balance we're proposing to be funded from the contingency reserve. And we did have another change that there was a mechanics truck that was included in error on the capital budget. It's also on the deferral list. So we did make that change, and there was actually a $12,000 positive impact to the budget. So that's sort of where we stand right now.
Can I ask one question? Because did we include or did we get and include the ask from hospice?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, that is not included at this point.
Okay, thank you. And could you give us the details on that so everybody's aware?
Yeah, I think it was $92,075, and we could spread it over 5 years.
So the impact per year is,
Let me just think it's 18 something. Let me say 92,075 divided by 5, 18,415.
okay. Has everybody got that? Okay,
Okay, I'm going to turn off the stop sharing. Okay.
okay. Everybody get to their deferral lists. Okay, so we start, there's nothing on the CAO's list. On the CVO list, there's a new vehicle for bylaw that's been deferred for 40,000. Then the clerks, there's nothing. And now we'll go into community services. This is where we get into a large list. I open the floor. Do you want to go through it line by line, or do you want to take them? Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Well, I'd already gone through it, so I had like one in particular that I wanted to bring forward. I don't know if council feels that way, if we just bring up the things that.
Yeah, you can. bring it forward
that we
and,
thought.
we'll do that.
Okay, so it's on the first page, actually. It's the Canada Summer Games that I wanted to bring forward to, I guess I say to the budget, so we add that back in.
Yeah.
So I know when we passed this in council, that the plan was to slowly start putting this money away. That obviously this cash doesn't have to be spent right now, but we want to put it away so it's not one big impact to the levy. So the 260,000, I believe the plan was to add that in this budget, and then another, which is 1.6% adjustment, and then do that again next year. So that would put us.
It's a 4% commitment, and last year we did, I think, 0.75%. So we could put this in if you got a seconder. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Decker? And then we can look at it at the end. It doesn't mean that's the figure that we use, but that's open for debate. But we get it in there, and then we will go back once we see what everything we've added and where we're at. Okay.
Okay.
So I got Councillor Wilson, a seconder, Councillor Decker. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'll open the floor. Keep going. All right. Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, I just, not a big one on there, but I was looking at, we had our Parks and Trail meeting today. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. We had our Parks and Trail meeting today, and I'm just looking at the, with us doing the Battle of Beaver Dams, I'm looking at the wheelchair swing. The possibility of adding it into having it at the Battle of Beaver Dams. I think it's a big thing to have anyways around, but I was wondering if we could put it in for that.
I think we can, but I think we should deal with the Battle of Beaver Dams first as a whole.
Okay, well, we were just, so I just wanted to put that in there.
I'll make sure it's covered.
Okay, thank you.
So go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Seeing that Councillor Sens brought up in regards to the swing, I know reading the minutes from the committee in regards to that Donna had brought that forward actually, and one of the individuals, I think Rise's name is possibly, actually has been in one of those types of swings or has used one and was very positive in regards to it. So I had given Donna some information in regards to one from an article that I had seen actually in the Hamilton Spectator and on CHCH News. And not that I'm in regards to Battery Dam Parks putting one there, but I do believe in our long range forecast in regards to parks, we're looking at building a park where we have the Glen Gordon Park. We're also looking at building a park in the Merritt Meadows area, Artisan Heights area. So, you know, we may have to consider more than one, or we need to, as a council, collectively bring our minds together and which would be best suited for our municipality, which park. But I'm very supportive of putting one of those types of swings in. I believe when I looked, the cost may have been around $50,000 actually for the whole unit type of deal. And I see nothing wrong with that. So I fully support Councillor Sutton's intention. It just may be which park may be best suited for it.
Thank
So,
you. You're-
You're saying, you're putting a motion forward, Counselor Sentence, and Counselor Hanley's gonna second it, that we add one of those swings, park to be determined. Am I correct? You-
That's good.
Councillor Sutton is happy with that? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm good with it.
so that's a motion on the floor. Does anyone want to speak to that? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. So we add that, and that is, what I seen it in here, and what's that?
Page 29.
Okay, I see it, wheelchair swing, yes, okay,
Parks.
very good. Go ahead, Counselor Longo.
Mr. Mayor, back to the Battle of Beaver Dams Park.
Yep,
It's got a deferral here of $2 million, yet the other day there was an announcement. I believe we were awarded roughly $500,000 from the provincial and federal government in total.
that's not been taken into, so that would come off that number, Counselor Longo.
Okay, so my question is, I guess through you to the appropriate staff member, what is our obligation with that grant money? Do we need to spend it this year? Do we need to contribute a certain amount of our own? Do we need to do the entire project to get the money?
The project that was committed on our behalf is roughly 100, what was the final number?
178 contribution from the city.
178 is that we have to get that funding, okay? And that funding is contingent on that project moving forward. Okay,
So
I'll let Jeff speak on that, our Director of Public Works.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The other part to Councilor Longo's question is when does the money have to be spent by? I believe, and Donna can correct me, I believe it has to be spent by 2024.
If you look at the line that I seen on that document, it needs to be spent this year. The 22 and 24 says, if you look at the line on the funding on the transfer payment agreement, it's, I think we really need to look hard at that because that's not the way I read it.
So my question to you, Mr. Mayor, if it does need to be completed this year,
Not
Do
the,
we need-
the part related to the grant. We'll get the final answer here though, Councilor Longo.
but can we do a portion of this project based on that money? And if so, do we need to add 178,000 to our budget?
Absolutely, or we can go further. This is why, this is what we talked about at the meeting that bring this forward for discussion at budget. If you look at the line where it shows that, it's very clear to me. It's in the transfer payment agreement. I've got it. Let me. No. Yeah, you see that? Completion of project 100%, 21 to 22.
But we have to confirm if that's correct.
No, but that's what the transfer payment, that's my understanding of it.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, let's assume that we do need to complete it this year. do we have our 178,000 included in our budget, or do we need to add it now?
We need to add it now, and that, I'll let Jeff, would you want to speak to this? And Maria, because we talked on the breakdown on how, if we do it all or if we don't do it all, and where that money's coming from without impacting the levy. Can we speak on that, please?
Okay, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so the $2 million includes a couple of things that were probably not anticipated when the original grant application was made. You know, as a result of the Public Information Center and the feedback we got through that process in 2019, we wanted to look at some of the key features, particularly the amphitheater, create a passive park area, and then an active playground area. One of the things that we're concerned about is we know that the site is an original canal site and a landfill. And I wanted to include some money to deal with unstable soil conditions that we are likely to come across as part of any heavy construction. The amphitheater design includes a lot of armor stone, which requires a lot of heavy equipment to be working in that area. So there is some contingency in there. There's some additional costs associated with contract administration. And so the original concept when the application was initially made has been changed. I'm hoping that it doesn't cost us $2 million. And we'll do our best to sharpen the pencil, but you can also see that we're getting comments from the public about other things that we might want to add to this park design.
So when you show this amount though, Jeff, that includes, you would deduct off that the amount of funding we received. Am I correct?
Through Mr. Mayor, maybe I can take that question. Yeah, the $2 million would be the operations department total estimated cost at this point to do the entire project. In addition, we'd be looking at, they've asked for $20,000 for an alternate venue if there's things going on at the park that they can't do the Canada Day celebrations. From there, we would remove the $490,000. It's actually $491.49 roughly. So that leaves us with a balance to be funded of $1,530,000 roughly. In terms of financing options, we would offer up the following for council consideration. Option one would be to internally finance or debt finance that. That's over 10 years. That's going to add $170,000 to the levy. Option two is to have a look, defer other community service projects. This would free up time to do the Battle of Beaver Dams Park and free up some funds, not all, but certainly some funds, and apply to the Battle of Beaver Dams Park. The balance would be funded from reserves. And then your last option is to fund this wholly from reserves.
Councillor Longo, go ahead.
Okay, so my understanding is if we added this to the levy, it would be about a little over a 1% tax increase just for that project. I guess my biggest concern to Mr. Holman would be we have $16 million in carry forward projects. We have another $8 million in new capital projects, and then potentially this one. What are the odds of getting it completed?
Well, as soon as we start, we'll finish. Obviously, they're not going to start work until probably April or May of this year. If we can get a tender out quickly, the length of construction for a project of this size, probably 4 to 6 months. There are some risks here, depending on, contractor availability, what happens with COVID. whether the equipment has to come from the States. But these are normal things that we could deal with. Our hope is that if we started this March, that we could have everything in place for March of 2022.
Okay, so thanks for that answer. I'm gonna try to ask it another way. We couldn't get $16 million in projects done last year, and this has been ongoing. I know what happens and I understand it, but are we biting off more than we can chew here with all the carry forward, all the new projects, and maybe a few more added on? Or are you confident we can get this work done in a year that seems like there's a lot of unknowns?
I'm not sure if you're asking me whether or not this is more important than doing some of the other projects, Councillor Longo. They're all important. And as long as we keep putting them off, they're going to back up. These projects are not going to go away. This is really more of a political decision than it is, an asset management type of decision. You need to understand where the benefit's going to be for the rest of the community. And if you can get the best bang for your buck on Battle of Beaver Dams Park, then that's fine. There are other projects that we need to deal with they're being pushed off. St. David's Road, Broderick Avenue isn't even on the deferral list. There are some other important things that we need to address. And I don't have the answer unless we change the funding formula for those projects.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor, I had Counselor Neal and then I got Counselor Hanley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. A quick question on the Beaver Dams project. The funding that we received and what we're going to do with that funding if we add the 178,000 or whatever it ends up being. What part of the project, the $2 million project, are we doing? I myself have not seen it. So I don't know how I can make a decision one way or another whether to, I thought that we were going to come forward with a report with the maybe 2 or 3 options, as Maria just mentioned, on whether to do the total project and spend $700,000 or $800,000 in reserves, or whether we're going to just leave it at the project that we got funding for, or something in between. And as I think Councillor Hanley just mentioned, we have 2 or 3 people that have already sent requests in to change the project to add some other factors to it. I can't make a decision tonight on this. I mean, it's just, from my perspective, we have to wait till an actual report comes forward on what that funding is all about. And I'm sure that by the next budget meeting that we can have that particular report regarding what funding we look for and what part of that project that we look the funding for. So I can't make a decision tonight one way or another on that particular project. And that, so that's my comments at the present moment, unless someone else can jump in and we can figure out what that particular project means and what is it?
Counselor Hanley.
You know, me, like Councillor Long makes a great point. We got 16 projects from before, 8 that we're going to add, 24, and we're going to be doing more. I got all my budget binder books here from the last several years, and I hate to say it, folks, I got lots of them here. We've been playing catch up for a decade of trying to get projects completed and never get to what we budget for in a budgeted year. Last year, I brought it up too, if council might remember, there was double figure amounted to. How many of them are carryover? You know, we want to get into that. I think we need to, because of COVID, start concentrating on what we have at task at hand. You know, and I know we got a big deferral list here, but we've been doing catch up for a decade in this city on projects that we haven't completed, but yet we've budgeted for during our budget. And we've had projects that we budgeted for and have canceled because they've been carried over, and we found out when we put them out for tender, they were $1 million more than what we expected them to be in the first place. And that's what's going to continuously happen unless we deal with what we have here, because what's happening, those carryover projects were budgeted at 2019 or 2020 construction rates. And if you take the average mean construction price increase in materials, it used to be about 7, 8, 12%. I'm telling you, building materials and some materials have gone up 40% in the last year. And that. So a lot of those items that are carryovers that we budgeted for, we're going to be having to deal with staff coming back and no fault of theirs and asking us to agree to budget overruns as we did in 2020. And it's going to continue in 2021, 22, and 23, unless we do what we need to do and get the projects that we've already budgeted for and get them completed. And I think it's no better time now to do it than now, because we're in this post-COVID, pre-COVID. We're guesstimating where we may be, how long it's going to be. So I'm thinking if we're ever in a good position to maybe just put everything on hold. Because we got to remember, we got $750,000 coming next year for the Canada Games alone that we need to find funding for too, if council hasn't forgotten. 310, 250, and 200 at an increase of 4%. You know, and there's been some numbers floated around what it's going to cost the taxpayers. So that's what my position is. You know, I've had one item I wish to put on here, but my item is we're getting backlogged. We're going to add more projects on to an already depleted staff and the capability to doing it. And we're not going to get caught up in 2021, 2022, or 2023. We keep going this route. That's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. But regarding the Canada Games, that was well laid out, the 4% and broken down over 3 years. And that's why that money's in there. So it wouldn't be 750,000 next year.
But we haven't looking at our 10-year capital forecast either, Mr. Mayor, and even considered that amount.
So don't say those figures because they're not right. Okay, that's what I'm telling you. Anyways, Councillor Kenny.
Mr. Mayor, point of order here. I took the 310, the 250, and the 200 from the documents that were given to us on December 3rd, 2019. So they're the numbers I'm using, Mr. Mayor. They're not numbers I just grabbed out of thin air.
And the 4% put that into perspective, and then it's ingrained in the budget.
Every year.
All the way the budget works. And you know, once it's ingrained, then it doesn't keep multiplying every year. Okay, Councillor Kenny.
It does get ingrained.
Okay, I got a question on the deferral of St. David's Road. I understand the part.
Right now, Councillor Kenny, we're dealing with the Battle of Beaver Dams Park.
Oh, you just wanted just that one item? I thought you were talking about all deferrals.
When we're done that, then we can move on to the next item. We're dealing with.
Okay, then I'll speak on that item then. I feel, well, we got a $500,000, whatever. I do want to work on that park personally. I don't want to spend $2 million on it. I agree with most of the other councilors. I think we should pick a number that we want to spend on that, budget some money toward it and I would like to see the project go on, but not with $2 million.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to that? Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say the same thing. Like, I don't mean to sound cheap, but I was thinking we spend the money that's required to get the 500,000 if we have to use that this year, and then tailor our plan to that budget. I don't know. There's so many things that need to be done in the city. I just can't see spending $2 million on that park. That might sound terrible. I apologize, but I don't know how the other councilors feel about that. If we can like move that forward, but put whatever it is that we have to spend to get that funding, or maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe we just wait till we have the money. I don't know. I just think 2 million seems really high, but.
Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with what everybody said, and I confer with Councillor Hanley. It just seems like the deferrals of the important projects just keep piling on and they're not getting done. I say let's focus and get what we can get done and what we can afford to get done so we can move forward. Thank you.
Councillor Sen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I can live with that thought process. It's a big project. It's going to be a great project there. But if we start with and use the money that we have, we don't want to lose the money. We have to do something, and then pick a number and move on from there and see if we can do it from debenture deferral so it doesn't hit the taxpayer. But I mean, we do have to do something with this to get the money that we've been given. So I'm with the other councillors, but we have to do something here. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to speak to that? Councillor Decker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Victoria. I'd like to bring it forward as well. Whatever amount, I don't know if it's 200,000 we have to bring forward to get our funding. So can I put a motion forward that we bring it forward with the amount that we need to get it started or to get the funding?
Yes, I'll get Maria to give us the exact number. Maria?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. I think it was, someone correct me, I think it was $178,000 that we had to kick in, plus the 490. I don't know if Donna's on there. Is that the amount, Donna?
The number.
The total number.
The total of our funding,
Yeah,
$108,266.28.
Okay.
178, 266,
28 cents.
28.
28.
And the
Okay.
total is?
This minus this. So we're going to add 668,415.
That's correct.
Okay. That's the motion on the floor. Is there anyone that want to speak to that or talk to it or add to it? Or go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Mr. Mayor.
Go
I
ahead.
agree with what, thank you. I agree with what Councillor Neal said. We need to understand what we're going to do with this money. We just can't throw money at a project, and for that money, we may realize nothing that's visible. I'm not sure. Like, what happens if it costs $600,000 to do all the, you know, boring infrastructure and people don't see a benefit to it? I would prefer to see Mr. Holman come back to our second budget meeting, give us a few details on what can be done for $500 and some odd $1,000. Maybe it's not adequate. Maybe we need to add a bit more.
Do you want
But,
to? Do you
but
want?
if I just say we're going to throw this amount of money at the Battle of Beaver Dams Park, what is it we're getting? And is it going to be anything that's worth that sort of money? Or do we need to spend more to see a benefit?
I'll ask Jeff if he wants to speak to that, because I think that that's the point you make is well taken. I think we need to spend more than that to make a dent in that. But go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Both comments from Councillor Neal and Councillor Longo make a lot of sense. I think you need to go back and have a look at the presentation that we gave to you on the 19th of April and see what it all included. I'd be happy to go back and have a look at the costs again to see what might be phased in or staged or, postponed or deleted to try and get the number down. As I mentioned in my previous response, there are a number of number of contingencies that could take the number back up again. And I'd also like to have a look at some of the other projects that might be funded from the same reserves to see if they might be able to be postponed as part of the financing solution.
Can we
just quickly? Yes, I'd like to have the opportunity to bring a report back, and I could do that at the next meeting.
Okay, is that good with everybody? That will come back for discussion at the next meeting? I think that makes sense. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll move on. Who wants to go ahead? Councillor Kenny, you're up.
Yeah, I just had a question on, I see the St. David's Road is on the deferral list with the sewers. I understand the portion from from Collier Road to the former gas station. That, I would think that has to be in conjunction with St. Catharines. So like, where are they sitting? I understand the portion from the former gas station to Front Street is all Thorold, but can we defer this if they aren't, or vice versa? Or can I get something from Jeff maybe that on where that project sits?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, St. David's Road project from Collier to Front Street is just completing the EA process. They'll select the preferred alternative, and then we'd like to move ahead with the engineering design. The project includes some property acquisition, which is going to take some time to deal with, some environmental cleanup potentially. And we're going to need to get the City of St. Catharines to be on board for their share. So there's still some outstanding work that needs to be done there before we're starting to put a shovel in the ground. If we can complete the engineering design by the fall of this year, I'd like to bring the project back to see if we could start construction so that we could complete St. David's Road before the Canada Games event. Otherwise, we'll have to push it down the road a little bit. I should have a report to council sometime in March that will provide an update on the project and what the timelines are going to be.
Does that answer your questions, Councillor Kenny?
Most of it, but I guess, so do we have to budget any money for the engineering part that you're talking about to get that completed?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and that's included in the budget.
In the base budget, am I correct?
In the base budget, yes.
In the base budget, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. The floor is open. Go ahead, Councillor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a couple of things on a deferral list, and I just, the community grants removed TCAG service agreement for 40,000, which I guess is not in the budget. Is there a proposal coming forward for a different type of service agreement for the TCAG? Maybe
Go
Jeff.
ahead, Jeff, or Curtis, one of you.
Mr. Mayor, we've been working on an agreement with TCAG as directed to by council and is referenced in our Parks and Rec Master Plan. We should have the report available for council's consideration on the 16th, which will talk about switching the arrangement for funding with TCAG from the community grants program to more of an operations contract type of formula.
Is that already included in the base budget, or do we have to add it in?
I don't believe it's included in the base budget, with the exception that if we want to proceed, my recommendation would be that we move it out of the community grants program, which is funded. I think there's funding in the amount of $91,000 there now.
I'll turn that over to our Director of Finance, Maria, to go comment.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We went through something similar years ago with LACAC, that they really didn't want to be part of the community grants process. And what we did at that point was we created a separate line item and we reallocated funds out of the community grants into the separate line. So council could consider doing the same for the TCAG, because they have always been funded from that pot. So we would just, whatever amount is required, we would create a separate line item and reduce the overall community grants bucket by that amount.
Okay, so that would not impact the budget then if we do that.
Do we have to do that here, Maria?
Yeah, I can note it in the spreadsheet. So what we'll do is we will, if you vote on it, if everyone's okay with it, we'll have reduced the create line item for TCAG. Is it 40,000 this year, Jeff, or is it a different amount this year? We need an amount, and then we'll make the switch.
Go ahead, Jeff.
The report is still confidential, but I can provide that number if you wish. If you need a number to be reported tonight, I believe we used the base as $25,000 as the base, but you really need to see the agreement to see how it's structured.
Do we have to go on camera for that? Right? Okay, okay. So how are we doing this? Counselor Neal, do you want to make a motion then?
I'd rather wait till next week and we can see the report. I mean, we can wait a week before we have to.
Yeah. Can we,
We're just moving money from one spot to another and we're not impacting the budget from what I understand.
so make sure that that's captured, please, and we'll get back at that then as well. Okay,
My second item is the proposed senior center full-time cleaner, which has been taken out, I guess, of the senior center, the cleaner. Is there an amount in our base budget for cleaning the senior center? Or if not, should we be putting at least something in there? I know no one's cleaning anything right now, but it will come back to having a cleaner clean the building, and how are we going to fund it?
go ahead, Maria.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as an employee of the senior center board, there has always been a part-time cleaner, and that has been part of the budget that the city provides funding for. So I would assume that once they're back up and running, that that same process would continue. So
Okay.
there is funding for a part-time cleaner in the budget, but as an employee of the senior center.
Okay, thank you.
So that funding's there, Counselor Neal, for part-time, and I think it's like 4 hours a day. Am I right? It's not, it's half-time basically hours, yes.
Yeah, okay, as long as it's included in the budget and not some other money. That's fine right now, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, who's next? Counselor Decker.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just have a question for Jeff. He mentioned something about Broderick Avenue. Is Broderick part of the main budget? Is it going to be getting done? Or are you still working on the engineering plan for that?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Mr. Mayor, we have to finish up the engineering design, but because of the funding constraints, we're looking at the possibility of phasing the project into two separate projects. Broderick is a great project, but it's long and it's expensive, probably in the neighborhood of $3.8 million. So we have to find another way to get it started. And so I don't imagine that we'll have funding available to go to construction this year. And I'll bring an update report with some options in the spring sometime.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that.
Okay. Is there anything else? I got Counselor Hanley up. Go ahead, Counselor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hadn't seen it in the budget or anywhere in regards to when I had asked in regards to possible washroom in Port Robinson East Park. I don't see it in the deferrals are brought in, unless I'm missing it somewhere. I hadn't been able to see it because the two items I was looking for was the wheelchair swing and the washroom facility. As we know, if it wasn't for COVID, we probably would have been able to get a washroom facility built this year between the efforts of the city and the community. And I'm wanting to know if we could put a washroom facility on there. I do believe estimated cost would be roughly $90,000. And I could, if we want it, I could discuss in detail. I've gone through the city's master recreational plan in regards to parkettes, parks, so on and so forth. I could bring it up. It mentions we have we got to remember coming there, we have the Port Robinson Ferry that's crossing. We also have the parkette where the lock is, and we have the Port Robinson Park itself. And because of COVID-19, I think it's adamant. I think, it's paramount that we give proper washroom facilities to each municipality to use in their we're asking people that right now, who knows how long it's going to last, but to wash your hands frequently. You can't do that on a Johnny on the spot, and it's not sanitized. It's not sterile. I know what I go through. I'm the cleaner at work and that stuff. And where I'm working now for hydro and that stuff. I'm actually the COVID person. I do 15 trailers and I know what the standards are in regards to the province and what they want to see happen. And I can't see us not wanting to do it. So I'm wanting to know if we could put it in the budget. We can discuss it further. I know there's some estimates as to regards to, if you look at the long range forecast and all the work we're looking at doing parks and building new parks within the city. And I think we should take into consideration of supplying Port Robinson with a washroom facility, a built washroom facility, seeing the amount of washroom facilities that are in our downtown core. And because of the work of volunteers and the generosity of the city of Thorold, we were able to do that one in Thorold South. I think it's a small token to ask. And if I could put that on the budget, I'm estimating cost to be $90,000.
Jeff, can you bring a report back next meeting?
I can, Mr. Mayor, but I can also refer you to page 44. You'll see that there is an item under park about 3/4 of the way down. It says new Port Robinson East Park washrooms. There's an allocation of $50,000.
Well, I'm sorry, Jeff, I apologize. 44?
On page 44,
Yeah,
which is the long spreadsheet, the fold out one.
well, I apologize. Newport Robinson East washrooms. Yes, I apologize. Sorry.
No, it's not the number that you suggested, Councillor. We use 50,000 as kind of a base amount
Okay,
based on our earlier estimates.
okay, if we could consider that. So it's in the budget there for us?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I apologize, Jeff. And
No
that's
problem.
enough for it. And because I actually didn't see it.
I know you brought it up at a previous meeting, so.
No, okay, so then Jeff, if I could ask them through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, please. So we're actually budgeting $50,000 in the 2021 capital budget?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, if I could, on that note, I'm also willing to offer to the city to help in the costing that I do have a couple of individuals. That even though my plans to build the washroom there had gone away, that would maybe donate to the project to the city. And I could do that when we come to come to fruition through Maria for those donations to be made. Can we do that, Maria?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we do have a donation policy, and as
Yes.
long as we follow the, the outlines of the donation policy, get approval up front. I'm not sure if they're just donating materials or if they're actually donating services as well. If it's services, we do have to be cautious of, our insurance and liability and risk and things like that.
Okay, if it comes to that, right now, I'm just looking at the monetary thing, but I hadn't been discussing, but I know previously we had done something, but I could work with Jeff Holman on this. And again, I'm glad to see it there. I don't know how I actually missed it, to tell you the truth. But I appreciate it being there, and I'll work with Jeff, and I appreciate that, Maria, also. So just to let you know that I do have some monetary contributions that can be made to the project.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. Anyone else? I got one I want to bring up. It's on page 31. I want to have a discussion on this. I really, with the work we're doing downtown and the focusing, and we're going to get a report back on the Beaver Dams Park. We got 2 parking lots down there, parking lot 3 and 5. Parking lot 3 is the parking lot behind the old hardware store that leads through to by the Legion. And it is a mess. Do you want to speak to that, Sean?
My first comment is that parking lot 3 is actually the one in behind Shannon Pizarro's place, the old fire hall.
Okay, so what is that parking lot 5 then?
Parking lot 5 is actually in behind parking lot 3. Parking lot 4 is the one over by the Legion.
And is it on the list for this year? I'm sorry. I get confused by the numbers.
I don't believe so. I believe we started the parking lot 4, 3, and 5 design. Both of them parking lot 5 needs to be hard surfaced. And when we do that, we have to do some stormwater management. And the stormwater management is going to run right through parking lot 3. So we'll end up having to build them both together. Our internal staff have gone through and done a design for that, and then we broke it out into 3 and 5 as a phasing process. Parking lot 4 is not even in the deferrals at this point in time.
It's not even on the list?
No,
What would be a projected cost in that parking lot, you know?
I'd put it in the neighborhood of what we're paying for parking lot 3. So in the $500,000 to $600,000 range.
Okay. So what's your recommendation on these parking lots? Because I know our long-term plan before was to try and knock one off at a time and get all these lots done. So where are we at there? What's your, could you give me some opinion on that, please?
My personal opinion on that is we have some other fish to fry at this point in time.
Okay, you think
I
that,
think the St. David's project and stuff like that is more important.
that's fine. That's good. I just wanted to get that out and because I was mistaken on the number of the parking lot, so. Anyone else? Boy, there's quiet. I gotta see what else I had. So the community grants is coming back next meeting. We'll finalize that. We put in the summer games. The construction of the Beaver Dams Park is gonna come back with a report on whether, what would that do with the money that we've got with the grants and everything? How much will that do? And how much would it cost to do, you know, more? How we would fund it? You're gonna bring that back, Jeff, am I correct? We got the wheelchair swing. Counselor Hanley, where are you? I circled something I thought you'd bring up for sure was the security camera program.
Well, the security program, I see that we're looking at doing it at, from Front Street.
Front Street.
DQ House, right? We're looking at doing it there?
Yeah, so I circled that because I said Counselor Hanley's gonna bring this one up for sure.
Well, I know it's on the deferral and that we had brought it up further, but I wasn't gonna bring it up even though that we do need it because I do believe it's on a request basis, right? And we had set a budget probably in 2020 to do it. Jeff, could you help me out on that one? Or I know that we were doing it on a request basis, right? Or is the $50,000 we're looking at there, that's for fixed cameras in those areas? Where we were talking before that come up the budget where we're looking at mobile camera systems and they would be on a request basis. Where are we going with that? Go ahead, please. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Jeff Holman.
Thanks. Perhaps Curtis Drake could provide more detail. He's done more of the research on it. But there is a process that we had to go through. You may recall seeing us in the middle of last year, we approved a policy through the clerk's office that talked about what we had to do to designate or determine the need there.
Right.
But perhaps Curtis could help.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have looked at that. The challenges that we have is right now there is no network infrastructure out there in terms of Wi-Fi or even cellular is kind of sketchy out there. So especially DQ is what I'm referencing at this point. So we have done some research on that, and that's where these numbers came from to pull essentially a fiber line out to that area. I know there's also cellular cameras that we can look at as well. But again, with the list of priorities here, it was something that was left on the deferral list.
Okay.
Now,
Go ahead, Mr. Hanley.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I know if we looked and other municipalities have gotten funding through the Niagara Regional Police Board to put closed circuit TVs, example, St. Catharines.
That's correct. There has been funding available because what that does is it helps share the cost because there's a monitoring that goes on, eh? And
Yes.
that's done by a third party.
Yes.
So
And I was wondering if we could maybe do something, have we ever considered, or, not that we need to do it now, but in the future, is partnering with the BIA and our local business to see if we could tap into some type of system in regards to that? Curtis, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Curtis?
Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, we are looking at doing some sort of Wi-Fi network downtown. So downtown would be a much more viable option at this point, but I can definitely reach out to the Niagara Regional Police and look into that as well.
Yeah, because there is funding there available, as Mr. Mayor, as you mentioned, I appreciate that. And see where we may be able to go with this, and if we may be able to tag on to something that would be beneficial to ourselves and the community. Be greatly appreciated.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, that's something like down the road, or whether we do it now, we should be looking at, if we're gonna spend money and do Battle of Beaver Dams Park and these places, I believe we should be putting some security system in these places.
Yes, and I do too, you know, and as mentioned, we know what happened out at DQ and how they discredited the monument there, and after all the hard work that was done. And it's obviously happening more frequently now for whatever reasons, none of us really know. But any type of security would be beneficial. And I appreciate you bringing it up, Mr. Mayor, but I knew exactly what you're gonna talk about, but it's okay, whatever we can do. I know it's a tight year this year.
Okay, thank you. I had Councillor Longo next, and then Councillor DeRose.
What, honey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for pointing out the security camera program, because I missed that line on the bottom of the page. But that brings up a request I've had from a number of residents in the area of our tourism building.
Yeah.
Is there any chance we could get a camera out there? We would have Wi-Fi, which I think in that building. And could we maybe use it as a test facility? Because as you know, there's quite a few issues with illegal activity in that parking lot. And I had 2 calls again last week. So I don't know if council wants to try that maybe as a test project because it's on our property.
You want to bring a motion on that, Councillor Longo?
I would love to.
Okay. I have a seconder, Councillor Hanley, that we look at a pilot project with security camera program at Lock 7 Viewing Center. Am I correct?
Yes.
Go ahead to Curtis.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe if you look at the bottom of page 46, you'll see Lock 7. New security cameras are actually in there for $5,000.
Perfect.
It's in the budget?
That's correct, sir. Yes.
Oh, there you
Withdraw my request, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Did you want to speak on that issue, Councillor Hanley? Otherwise, I got Councillor DeRose.
Yes, so then obviously there will be using the city's Wi-Fi and our IT person in regards to monitoring that. Is that the
Is that what we're
is that
doing?
what we're looking at doing? The objective here, Curtis, through you, Mr. Mayor?
Are we doing this in-house, Curtis?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll have to have some additional conversations, but that is one option, I believe, yes, based on our new policy.
Can you investigate that? And if you need more than 5,000, bring it back at the next meeting so that we could add it to the budget, please? Sounds good. You good with that, Councillor Longo?
Yeah, I'm good with it. Yeah.
Okay, we got, I got Councillor DeRose has been waiting patiently. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
I feel bad. I think Councillor Kenny's been waiting longer, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Jeff Holman. Jeff, can you just, I'm on the bottom of page 30, so it's punched out, so it's the back of page 29. Just the traffic calming program. Can you just explain that line and what your take on it is if we need to get that money back into play? Because it's only 7,500, but just, can you explain what that was going for? And is that above and beyond what you're saying in the brackets there, the 27.5 to 20,000? I'm at the, just on the traffic calming program, Jeff, under deferrals. Page 30 at the bottom, last item. I think it's 30, it's punched out, but it's back at page 29.
Yeah, so we would have, Mr. Mayor, we would have preferred to have, or I think our initial request was to include more than what was approved in the budget. So in the budget, on page 42, we have $15,000 that is in the approved budget. We just had to cut it back, so we cut out $7,500. And that will mean that there are probably 1 or 2 sites that we'll not be able to get to this year.
Do you want to add that back in, Councillor DeRose?
I just wanted Jeff's opinion, if he feels that. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, we have enough to get a start, which is a good thing. I just recall in the report we took to council last year, there was a number of locations that we wanted to address.
I know it's important to.
I think it's fine. If we have to ask for more, we'll come back.
Yeah, just because the safety part of it concerns me as always, being on the active transportation committee and also the new committee. Yeah, whatever your advice is, Jeff, I will follow suit.
So
If you
Jeff,
think we can hold off and get away with it, then that's fine.
you think that if you need more, you can come back, and that's an item. And Maria, I know you won't like if I say this, but that's an item, a small amount we could use reserves. Am I correct? You know, I think that without, you know, if we decide it's important, it's a safety issue. What's your feelings? I put you on the spot here.
Well, Mr. Mayor, yeah, you certainly can use reserves. I guess the only thing that, you know, if we're not budgeting appropriately, I don't like that, you know, we'll just come back and ask for more. So if the appropriate number should be higher by $7,500, we should put $7,500 and have it in your base budget. And you guys won't like, and you won't like that.
No, I like your candidness. Councillor DeRose, I'll leave it with you.
Yeah, you know what? She's right. I think we should, if we're going to add it,
we can add everything now and then we can go back. We're gonna.
Yeah, can we add that, and then maybe Jeff could even think about it during the week, and he can definitely change my mind because I'll follow his expertise.
Okay, so he wants, so your motion is to add the 7,500. Can I get a seconder? I feel like I'm the auctioneer here. Councillor Sentence, okay. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay. Who is next? Councillor Kenny, you are next.
Yeah, so our staff came back with a budget at zero. I think we should be giving them some direction. We've given Jeff a lot to sort out here. I, as a counselor, could support an impact of 2% for a tax increase. So when he comes back, can we suggest that all this stuff that we added, that it come back with like a 2% increase in the taxes, and then we could support what we want in there, or add, or some kind of game plan where even if it's higher than 2, if he tells us what we can put in, because I'd like to put money toward the Battle of Beaver Dams Park, and we have to sort of give him a number that say it was $1 million or whatever it is.
But I don't think.
And the other thing is reserves. I know Maria's not going to like this, but as far as I'm concerned, the reserves from on January 1st of 2020, whatever we had in the reserves should be the same as in the reserves in January 1st of 2022. These 2 years, last year and this year, we should not be building any reserves up. Reserves are for a pandemic, and that's what we are in. Okay, so we should be at least spending the money now in these 2 years. And the reserves, as a counselor, I would be very happy, like I say, January 1st of 2020 versus 2022, the reserves don't go up at all. We should be spending the money and not raising the reserves. That's just my opinion. Thanks.
But Councillor Kenny, as part of that thing with the park, and that's why it was put forward there, Jeff's going to come back with a report, and he's going to show us what we could do for this amount, and this amount, and how we can pay for it. So those questions will be answered at the next meeting, and that will be good guidance, because that's the big ticket item that we're dealing with. Okay?
But I'd like to use some of the reserves if we can, is what I'm saying.
That's good. And as Maria stated today, there's 3 options. But the question's going to be finally what council wants to spend on the park and how you want to finance it. And
That's
all
fine.
that will come back at the next meeting. Okay.
Yep.
I got Councillor Decker, and then I got Councillor DeRose again, and I got Okay, but I'll start with Counselor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question maybe for Curtis regarding CE Gross Park. Where do we stand with the clubhouse and the washrooms? I ask because if for some reason we run soccer this year at the park, is the clubhouse available for use?
Go ahead, Curtis.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, the clubhouse is available for use. There is some money in the budget in the capital section to do some upgrades and repairs, and I will work with the user groups in that facility to figure out exactly what they would like to see addressed, so to speak. So yes, it is available.
So the 20,000 that you have for improvements, is that available, or do you need that to go to budget tonight?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that is currently sitting in the in column, if you will, for the capital, and an additional $20,000 and 20,200 in a COVID resilience amount as well, if I'm not
That
mistaken.
money's already been accounted for, Counselor Decker.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I got Counselor DeRosa, and then I got Counselor Neal. Okay, go ahead, Counselor DeRosa.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I totally disagree with what Councillor Kenny said about let's just spend the reserves. We're in a pandemic. We don't know anything about the future. I think staff has done a great job reserving our reserves, and I want to get the expert's opinion. I want if the CAO can or CFO, sorry, Maria, if she can enlighten us, because I disagree with Councillor Kenny, and I don't think we should be dipping into reserves. Thank you.
Okay, well, that report's coming back anyways, next meeting, Counselor.
Yeah, I just want to get, I want to hear what our CFO has to say about it, just because she's the expert.
I think she's already spoken to that in her presentation, but if you want to speak again, go ahead.
Through Mr. Mayor, we can come back next time. I don't think we're in the mode of building reserves. I don't really believe that I said that in the presentation, but we can come back with some information that does the comparison, and council can do with it as they will.
Thank you. I can say this, and this is up for this council to decide. I can tell you that across Niagara, municipalities are using reserves this year because of the COVID situation in order to get work done and keep taxes low. But that's this council's decision. So that's where this council will decide when we get back those reports and make a decision accordingly. Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will have a new project, which is the TQ Road Trails project, which I will bring up at the next budget meeting because the information didn't get to people, to councillors until today, and they need at least time to.
Can we make sure that that detailed report is in everybody's hands prior to the meeting? I want to make sure that everybody has time to digest it. Can we, well, is that going to be possible? I think part of it went out, but yeah, okay. Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to chime in on this. I think what Councillor Kennedy, one of the things he was getting to is giving staff a little more cushion and instead of a zero budget going up to around 2. So there is room to, not to play, but room for contingencies and to give staff and the city a little bit of cushion if things happen. So I absolutely agree with that. I'm not going too high, so we're conscious of the taxpayers, but to have something and not nothing in the budget, I think is where we know how we give that direction or what everybody else thinks. But I think we should be up and around there to have some money in there. So that's how we go about that. I'm not 100% sure. If you could help me out.
I think that the way that that's done, you'll see when Maria puts up the sheet, and she'll show you where we're heading. And obviously, we need the report back on the biggest ticket item, which is the Battle of Beaver Dams Park, with all the options and how much work we can do. So I don't want to box anyone in. Let's get all that information here and make a decision based on all the facts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, as you requested, here's what's been added this evening.
yeah,
We've got 260,000 for the Canada Summer Games. We've got 50,000 for the wheelchair swing, which I'm suggesting we would take from reserves. And then we've added the $7,500 for traffic calming. At this point, we are looking at a 1.5% increase.
and the biggest ticket item left for us to discuss is the Battle of Beaver Dams Park on how we're funding that and what scope of work we're going to do beyond the grant. Am I correct? Is everybody good with that? Okay. Does anyone want to have further discussion tonight or wait for all these facts and come back next Tuesday? I'll open the floor again. Can I get the full?
I don't know if you can see me, Mr. Mayor. I don't think you can.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor.
Sorry, I just had a question. I thought that also we put on there something about the St. David's Road, unless I misunderstood what happened there.
St. David's Road is what the Director of Operations stated is they're finishing the engineering and all the pre-work. Am I correct? I'll let Jeff say it better than I will. Jeff, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure I can. You're right. The engineering portion is in, Councillor Wilson, but the construction costs have been postponed until we can confirm exactly what it is we want to build there.
Oh, okay. I see.
Going to come back when all that's available and make a presentation to council, and then council can decide how they want to move forward.
Oh, okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Thanks for clearing that up.
We got it. She already did. Okay, so is everybody good here before we go? And then we'll come back next Tuesday with more information. Go ahead, Councilor Kenny.
Sorry, on that sheet that Maria put up there, was the hospice thing on there? I didn't think I saw it.
Through Mr. Mayor, no one has brought that motion forward yet, Councillor Kenny.
Okay, I will right now then.
We have a motion to add the hospice over 5 years, which Maria, give us the breakdown before.
18,415.
Okay,
Yeah, I think council is committed to that, so I think we should follow through with our commitment.
I agree. Seconder, I have Councilor Decker. Does anyone else want to speak to that? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried, so that's going to be added in as well. Okay.
And that'll be 1.7% that we're sitting at right now.
Okay. So we'll let Maria give us the final summary before we adjourn this meeting, and then we'll get the facts we need next meeting, and we'll be able to move forward from there. The big ticket item and the big discussion obviously is the Battle of Beaver Dams Park. Where are we now?
Oh, sorry, here we are here. We've just added the hospice.
Yeah.
So that brings our net position to 1.7%. Net levy change, 23.76, average impact, $23.76. And the estimated overall, including region, school board, and USA and hospital, $47 to the average home.
And okay, and so that's our starting point when we come back next meeting, okay? Is everybody good? Does anyone else want to speak? Okay, then, can I get, do I have anything else? What's that? Okay, so I need a motion to withdraw the bylaw because we didn't finish budget tonight. Okay, seconder. I got Councillor DeRose, seconder, Councillor Decker. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. And I need a motion to adjourn till next Tuesday. And we'll have those reports and we'll hopefully be able to finalize things. I got a mover, Councillor Wilson, seconder. I have Councillor Neal. That we adjourn at 8:19. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate everyone's input. And I look forward to next Tuesday and we'll have more information for you and a report on that. Thanks.
Have a
so
good night.
Good night, everyone.